Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on teaching outdoors and hybrid learning, an introduction to Grow Kits. We're just letting a few more people log on and get out of the waiting room. So give us another 2 or 3 minutes and we'll go ahead and get started. Please keep yourself on mute in the meantime. Thank you. Also, for those of you that are on already, I'm just letting you know we will be recording this webinar. Perfectly understandable if you don't want to be recorded, you can take off your camera for right now. But then during the Q&A period, we will pause the recording. So then you can feel free to ask questions and not worry about being recorded on it. And we'll do our best to edit you out afterwards later before we like post it or anything like that, if that is a concern. Danielle, did you remember to bring the mood music for this time for it to play in the background? Did you?
You know, I've been thinking about that this whole time. It's like some jazz fusion would be nice right now. So we just have to imagine it.
All right, we're gonna give it one more minute and then we'll get started. Just want to be respectful of everyone's time. All right, it is now 5 after the hour. Let's go ahead and get started. So I believe we're already recording. Great. If we continue to let people into the meeting as we go, I greatly appreciate it. What was I going to say? All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining us today. So what you're going to be able to expect from this webinar, it will run approximately about an hour. We are recording this webinar. If you do not want to have your face viewed, please turn off your camera. During the Q&A period, we will pause the recording so then you can come back on camera and ask any questions that you have. So the recording will be made available on our website and also be sent out to you after the fact so that you can view it and share it with your colleagues. Like I said, the Q&A period will be toward the end. We're going to reserve about 10 minutes for that. But please ask any questions that you have as we go using the chat function. We don't want you to lose your train of thought or forget what you have to ask. But of course, we're still available after the fact, so no harm done there. But please go ahead and ask your questions through the chat, and our colleague Danielle will be monitoring those. So can you please take the time? We want to know who has joined us today. Please introduce yourself via chat. Please let us know your name, the school in which you are affiliated with / representing, and your favorite thing to do in Chicago. So if everyone could do that, I'll greatly appreciate it. Danielle, I'm going to ask you to share some of those in a little bit from the responses from the crowd. I want to introduce today's speakers. My name is Kenneth Varner. I'm the Community Engagement Manager with Healthy Schools campaign. My favorite thing to do in Chicago is the summertime street festivals. Really looking forward to those. Maybe not this year, maybe next summer. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. We also have with us today Dr. Akila Martin, who has her doctorate from Purdue University in the area of agricultural and biological engineering. We also have Danielle Russell, who is the School Gardens Coordinator from Open Lands. And we have Sam Kaintop, Program Manager with Big Green. So Danielle, are some responses coming through from the crowd?
Yeah. So someone's favorite, Ingrid from Yates' favorite thing to do is eat. Me too. Daniel, the AP at Brenneman, says beach volleyball. That's impressive because that's very hard on the feet. So kudos to you. And Mr. Liberty from Saginash, I think that's how you say that, cycling. Also recently got into that. Kimmy, art teacher at Ogden, says taking their dog on a walk and also biking. And then Sam here also enjoys the forest preserves, Montrose Beach Bird Sanctuary, which is an amazing spot. It's kind of like, I don't know, I'm not going to ruin it. Y'all should go. And then Wendy from Gary also loves spending time with family at get-togethers. And then we got Mr. Unger walking by the lake. So we got a lot of great activities to take part in.
A lot of outdoor stuff too, which I'm really appreciating. I do love being by the lake. That was right up there. I was trying to pick which one I wanted. But with the Healthy Schools campaign, just tell you a little bit about us. We believe in the common sense notion that healthy students are better learners, and we really advocate for a holistic approach to education. And obviously, like, nutrition is a huge part of that. Studies have shown the positive impact between proper nutrition and how that affects academics performance and behavior, which is something that you as teachers already know, both in dealing with your students and knowing who's probably having who is eating that morning. And you notice that in yourself as well, and how that affects your mood between whether you have eaten or not eaten. I know we all get hangry. And your ability to focus. So those same issues that we deal with as adults, it is especially taking place in our children. So nutrition is one of the core things that we advocate for. Proper nutrition is something that we advocate for at Healthy Schools. And this chart is just showing you some of the correlations between proper nutrition and those effects, whether it be positive or negative, depending on what that nutrition aspect is. And keeping that in mind, CPS has developed certain wellness policies to ensure that students are receiving proper nutrition and developing those healthy habits to sustain them through their academic career. However, COVID has had a serious impact on your ability to deliver that proper nutrition instruction and helping to develop those healthy habits, which we're going to discuss like some of those things today. The official guidance on COVID is to pretty much be outdoors as much as possible. Even as guidance is changing, we know that being outdoors is the safest and healthiest place to be. But how do you do that during hybrid learning when you're trying to maintain social distancing? When you have some of your students at home virtually and some of your students right in front of you. Today, we're going to discuss a specific resource that can help you address some of these issues, as well as making sure your students are having access to nature. And studies have also shown that access to nature has a positive impact on academic performance as well. So we also want to keep that in mind as we're moving forward. So that brings me to Chicago Grows Food. Chicago Grows Food is a collaborative of Chicago growers. COVID-19 has shed a lot of light on the fragility of our food system. and especially those that had limited access to healthy food in prior to COVID-19, this pandemic, were found to be particularly suffering from those things, whether like not being able to have access to the grocery stores and being limited to the things that they can already find in their neighborhoods. So Chicago Grows Food came along to try to address some of those issues. So these are going to be some of the partners. There's going to be volunteers from each of these organizations that work on this project. You may recognize some of us already, of course, because that's probably why you're here today. Again, thank you for joining us. So as I was stating earlier, Chicago Grows Food came together to deal with some of the insecurities in the food system. We started delivering grow kits directly to families through community sites. And due to our relationship with schools, some schools volunteered to be those sites so we can have access to the families and deliver these kits. And once the teachers saw these kits, they began requesting them for their classrooms. Teachers have been using them in their lessons, for example, in science and in nutrition. But another great aspect to this was the social interaction that was gained with the teachers and the students. Students were eager to show how their plant was growing. So this gave a point where teachers can have conversations that not necessarily be academic. And what we've all needed in this pandemic was that closeness to each other. So this gave something for people to talk about that wasn't just about the rigors of school, right? And we've also shown that in some cases, parents have also got involved when they're at home, when they were talking about the grow kits with the teachers. So this increased the social interaction between teachers and the entire family without it having to be something that's academic where you're discussing or where you're troubleshooting certain issues, where we can all just connect as human beings. So that was one great positive impact that this has made. And to talk a little bit more about the grow kits and the anatomy of these kits is Sam Canetop from Big Green. Sam, please.
Thanks, Henry. You can go to the next slide. So at Big Green, we really focus on the school garden and growing as a connection point to health and wellness. And we're thrilled to be here to support this Healthy Schools Campaign workshop. Rather than showing you all of the components of the kit myself, I helped to create a video. This is actually my wife, who is a Chicago Public Schools preschool teacher, who did receive kits for families in her classroom this past year. And Kenneth, you really described it well, the connections that they were able to make in the classroom, both to students who are learning from home. And actually, this was a project they did before in-person learning began back in the fall. The connections that they were able to make at the preschool level really helped to support students to really feel like they were a part of a community in the school, and really make those connections really meaningful. So we've really appreciated the resource and see it really as something that can continue beyond the pandemic to support outdoor and nature-based learning. So we can play this video where Ms. Wheatley will demonstrate all of the components of the grow bag that come in the kit that Chicago Grows Food is offering. This is a 1 gallon kit, which we're really kind of focusing on for classroom use. Also not shown here is the 5 gallon kit, which instead of the seeds would come with a seedling already planted. And those we really try to focus for families who want to be growing a little bit more at home. But the contents other than the seeds or the seedling is really the same in the size of the bag. So we can go ahead and play the video. You'll see all the components. Can everybody hear?
No, I can't.
Okay, thanks. I can't either, but I can just explain as kind of, if you want to maybe go back, not all the way to the beginning. I can explain and kind of be the audio for this.
All right, good.
Great. So yeah, in the kit comes a grow bag itself. You can see the fabric grow bag. Inside of the grow bag is a plastic bag that has all of the soil. And then to the right of the grow bag, you see the activity book and the seed packet. So the first step you'll do when you're kind of doing this work with students is instruct them to remove the soil from the bag and add it into the fabric grow bag. One of the nice things about the fabric grow bag is because it's fabric, it breathes. And so it helps to keep the root systems really healthy and support proper drainage and good aeration in the soil so the roots have access to oxygen. It also means that the soil dries out rapidly, but you know, daily watering really supports that. Once it's full, we are recommending you put it on a tray, especially if you're doing this in the classroom or in somebody's home, in the kitchen, on the counter, by a window, on a table, on a desk, something like that. Because as you are watering it, you will see that some water will come out of the bag. And so putting it on something waterproof, like in this case, we used an old plate, works really well. This seed packet is lettuce. Most of the seeds that are coming with these 1 gallon kits are going to be green. So lettuce or kale, I think have been the most common ones we've used so far. And basically the way that we're planting these isn't to grow one giant head of lettuce or like one giant kale plant, although you could do that in a 1 gallon bag. We're planting, as you'll see Ms. Wheatley doing here, is she's sprinkling with her palm a whole handful, about half of the packet of seeds is sprinkling onto the surface of the soil. And you can see the white lettuce leaves, the white lettuce seeds kind of on the brown soil a little bit, how densely those seeds are being planted. And so there's enough seeds in the packet to do this twice. And the reason why we're planting them so densely and then very lightly kind of tickling them into the soil and covering them just the tiniest amount with soil is to have a really dense growth of lettuce, so that we're going to be eating immature lettuce plants with this project. We're not going to be growing full-size heads of lettuce. We're going to be growing not really sprouts or microgreens, but young immature lettuce, baby leaf lettuce that you would get in like a spring mesclun mix. And I think that it really does a good job of having this be a quick project where you can do this with students, you know, 1 week, and within 2 to 5 weeks, kind of depending on how immature you want to be harvesting, how much time you have left in the school year, kind of where you are in the seasons, be harvesting those baby leaves. And, you know, one gallon grow bag would provide enough lettuce for like 1 salad for a family. If it was, you know, maybe 4 or 5 weeks in, those leaves would be pretty nice size, especially in this warm weather we're having now. And you'll see Miss Wheatley's also watering with her fingers to very gently water. We're thinking of like using things that are readily available to families in their homes here, readily available in the classroom. You might not have a watering can for every student to use, or every family might have a watering can, but using any container that can hold water and lightly sprinkling the surface with water will help keep the soil moist without splashing water all over, really eroding the surface of the soil and disrupting where the seeds have been planted. A gentle light watering to help make sure that those seeds aren't disturbed. Once things grow, once the roots are holding the soil in place and holding the plants in place, you can water a little bit more quickly, more aggressively, but keeping things moist is helpful. Another tip that wasn't shown in this video is that plastic bag that the soil came in can easily just be turned upside down and placed over the grow bag, and to keep things moist and help speed germination along, especially in the in the cooler weather, although that's not an issue that we're having these days, thankfully. So one of the things to transition on to, like, now that you understand what's in the grow bags, some of the resources that Big Green as an organization has been putting together to support teachers during the pandemic who are working remotely, teaching remotely, to help support families at home and make some of these connections to the more academic-based learning that you're trying to achieve in your classroom with these more nature-based, these plant-based approaches of learning. And so there's links that Kenneth will be sharing out, and Healthy School Campaign will be sharing out this presentation, and you'll have access to all of these links, where you can visit Big Green's website, either two websites, Big Green at Home and biggreenathome.org and biggreen.org, where you will find a large selection of curated lessons available to help support this work. So Big Green at Home is a website that we've created because of the pandemic to help provide resources to teachers and families who are learning and teaching at home. And so these are lessons that are created and distributed on a monthly basis via a newsletter, and then they're archived on the website. So you can search by grade level, you can search by subject area. So whereas there's a section on food system, there's a section on food justice, there's a section on pollinator gardens, there's sections on our larger food system and where in the world our food comes from. There's different themes throughout that we've been sharing every month, and we'll be continuing to do that through the summer months as well. Next, I want to highlight the curricula that we have on our website. Ready, Set, Grow is a K-8 curriculum that really focuses on the parts of the plant. So this would be a great opportunity for, as students are growing in grow bags, for them to start thinking much more deeply, having some reading samples to go through, learn a little bit more about the parts of the plant and how they support the plant growth, how they might connect to nutrition, how they might connect to our food system, how they might connect to local foods, the environment, all of those things that are a part of food literacy. And so there's extensions around each plant part that students can go a little bit deeper. And as they're not just investigating what is a leaf and what it does for the plant, but then making these other connections to literacy or to science or to activism. Real Food Lab is a high school curriculum that focuses on entrepreneurship skills and connects that to the Learning Garden as a platform for students to think about a business, a food-based business that they can start to conceptualize and develop as a part of that curriculum. All of these are available for free to all teachers on our website, biggreen.org. And they're also set up as a set of drive folders so that you can pick and choose the components of the curriculum that are right for you and fit into what you're doing with your classrooms, with the units that you're teaching already. We also have them set up as Google Classroom so that it exists in a digital format ready to go. Also, this next link, Seed Explorations, we have been playing around with a new LMS, learning management system, and have created a series of seed explorations that would pair excellently with these grow bags. And so what this would look like is planting a combination of different plants, different seeds into a grow bag. And then we go through a series of about 8 units of short video lessons and observations that are guided by Big Green staff about those seeds from before you plant them to after they've grown and you're tasting them. So really connecting to that process that we've been talking about and following that through. The last thing I want to mention, and with the seed explorations in the LMS, this is a new thing for Big Green. So these are brand new lessons that we're creating. At the end of that series, though, there is a survey that we're asking teachers who participate to fill out and let us know how it goes. I also put the email link here to Diana Zegers, our curriculum manager, who is really helping to support the development of this content. So if you have any questions or have any feedback for us, please don't hesitate to reach out. And then the last thing I want to say before we pass it on to Dr. Martin is just the value in kind of bringing this back home to where Kenneth, you really started, is the social emotional learning connections that can happen. When you're thinking about the lessons that you're doing in second step and really intentionally teaching social emotional skills to your students in the classroom, finding ways to incorporate and use the natural ability for plants, the excitement that brings, the calming sensations that brings of when you put your hands in the soil, when you're putting your hands in water, when you're opening your senses up to the natural world, and kind of using that as a springboard to help students tap into what's happening in their bodies emotionally, tap into what they're feeling and their connections to other people. Use that as a springboard to connect to all of those other important lessons that you're teaching throughout the year, day to day in your classroom. And for students who are in school, really using the garden too, the outside garden, as a space where maybe that's going to be when you're outside doing your activity in the garden, whether it's just watering or weeding or planting, or you're teaching a lesson. While you're out there, plan on doing some of those social emotional learning lessons outside in that garden space. Again, use the space as an advantage to help students to settle into their bodies, to settle into their emotions, to think about and develop some of those skills that we're really working hard to do. That's something that Big Green is really thinking about as an area of growth for us, as we kind of think about the garden as a resource, and something that we'll be able to share out more of as we do this work. But kind of in the meantime, before we do have these kind of resources ourselves, I just want to highlight that as something that we've seen be incredibly valuable, and have gotten excellent feedback from teachers who have used the garden in that way. So that is all. Again, all of these links are available here as hyperlinks within the PowerPoint, and kind of has them all to share out as well. And with that, I'll pass it on to you, Dr. Martin.
Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Akita Martin, daughter of Laurel and James Martin. Kenneth, thank you. Thank you so much. Daughter of Laurel and James Martin, I am a soil enthusiast, and I'm excited to be here to talk to you all today. So Kenneth asked me to provide a few outdoor activities that you all can do with learners. And so I came up with 4 different ones. So one I'll talk about is the garden asset planner, soil texture, and plant health observations and wind. And so one of the 3 things I like for people to know is to engage frequently, energize, and envision. And as we're talking about growing things and gardening, at this point in life, growing food is becoming a survival skill. Not that it hasn't always been, but it's certainly more apparent now based on all the different things that we've learned over the past year. So I look forward to sharing some of my ideas, and hopefully you have some ideas for us. I'm ready, Kenneth. So the first one, garden asset planner. I also have a video of this on the Instagram for Chicago Grows Food, so you can check that out, how I did a physical walk around of my own home on trying to figure out a space for my grow bag or garden or container or whatever it is that you want to use. But in this case, we're talking about the grow bag. And so one of the things that you want to think about is your space, right? If you have a lot of space, then you have multiple opportunities to grow things anywhere. If you're in a small space, you may not have a lot of opportunities to grow things. So you want to think about what spaces have, and Kenneth, go to the next one so they can look at you want to look at if you're going to do it outside or inside, that's important. So if you're doing it outside, lots of sun is happening, especially if your house or home or apartment or condo or whatever it is you live in has a south-facing home. You will get a lot of sun, of course, but it also is really hot, which is what I'm finding. It's so hot in my backyard that's south-facing that I'm having to water all the time. And me thinking as a scientist, water is a finite element. And so what else can I do? So I'm being creative and thinking about that, and you should as well. And leading to water access. So water is heavy, so you don't want to have to carry it. And I like Sam's idea with, using whatever you have in your home as a container to water things. And so you may even want to have different sizes of containers to water, not just a watering can, but something really small, medium to large, extra large, depending on where you are in the garden experience. You want to really think about the soil observations. So in the grow bag, the grow kit that they're giving you. Someone is off mute. Is there a question? All right. So they're giving you a potting mix and not necessarily soil. And so I want to make sure that we're clear about what soil is. Soil is the mixture of sand, silt, and clay. So that's very different than potting mix. And you want to think about what all those soils that they're selling to you at the store. So they sell peat, they sell garden soil, they sell mushroom compost, they sell compost, they sell manure, they sell seed start mix, they sell all types of things. They sell topsoil. So you want to know what's best for you and what you want to do. And basically what they're selling you is a texture, which I'll talk about as another experiment that you can do outdoors or indoors with the learners. And so you want to look at the color of the soil. The darker the soil is, the more organic matter it has, usually, generally. You want to look at the fertility, which you all can also do a test. They sell the test kits online. You could probably purchase that if you have a budget for that. Second thing is to think about the wind directions. I know at my home, the home that I'm in now is very, very, very windy. And so I'm really thinking about next year's garden and what I'm planting. I may need to get things that are really, really strong because everything is being blown away, falling down. So thinking about what those wind patterns are throughout the year. Thinking about what's growing. So that's the flora and fauna. So that's the plants and animals that are in your yard, in and around. So if there are tree species, grass, any other things that are growing, take note of that. And they have a really good app that I can't recall right this moment, but I will share with Kenneth later, where they have where you can do plant identification, animal identification. So that's a whole nother activity that you can do with the learners. And then thinking about, it's iNaturalist. Thank you, Danielle. Yep, so you can definitely do that. I think every year they usually have some type of competition. I'm not sure if they're doing it this year, but that would be something you can do as well to tie this with the grow bag. And then thinking about, you can just ask the learners, what do they like to eat? So, and that'll lead to what they want to grow. And then they'll have more of an affinity to what they're growing and what they're going to eat or consume once it grows. The most important thing of this is the tools. So what do you already have? So thinking about that, because we definitely don't want people going out buying different things. You may already have things that you can use around the house as tools. And so we can definitely share some creative things around that if necessary. All right, Kenneth, next slide. All right, so activity 2 is soil texture. And so as I was saying, the different soils that you sell at the store, they're selling you a texture, right? They have figured out at some point that a loam texture is really good for water movement, air movement, organism movement through the soil. And so Chicago has really high clay content in their soils, and then some soils are very sandy. So, we have a beach, we have a lake. And so sandy soils, water moves through really quick. So the plant's roots will not be able to get the water that's needed because the water is always draining. And clay soils, the water tends to pool or pond or stand, right? And so not all plants love a lot of water. So they came up with this loam, which is a nice mixture of the sand, silt, and clay. And so they sell that to you and they tell you this is a good moisture control, so on and so forth, so that you don't have to do a lot of watering, which we don't want you to do, right? And it's good for the plant's roots and for the plants overall. Okay, so next slide, Kenneth. So there are 2 experiments that you can do indoor and outdoor. One is the soil texture by feel, which is showing the person's hand at the top. And then at the bottom left is the soil jar test. So you can do both. And I would recommend doing both and letting the students see, how their results compare and contrast from the soil texture. And so, but the soil by feel is easy, simple, quick. The soil jar test requires a little bit more math enthusiasm, and not everybody's interested in math, but it does, require a little bit more conversation, and that may be what you want with the learners. So definitely go that route. Either way, they're both really good projects to do indoor and outdoor. And you can ask the students to bring the soil from their own homes if appropriate, and they can do that soil texture by feel and the soil jar test. And you all can talk about those results and what does that mean about water movement through the soil. All right, next one. So this is the soil jar test, just to give you a bigger picture of that. So I do want to make a note that not all soil has all 3, sand, silt, and clay. You may only see one depending on where you are geographically. You may see two of those. It just depends, right? And so you want to make sure you say that to the students. You would measure this with a measuring tape, a ruler, or whatever you have that you can measure it with, and then you would get percentages. And on that previous slide, you would use a soil texture triangle. And I will have a video. I do have a video, but I know I'm going to do a little bit more deeper into doing different ways to do the soil textural triangle that we can share with you later on. And you can always look all these terms up. This is not new stuff. This stuff is very old. You can always look it up and read about it on your own as well. All right, Kenneth, next slide. So the next one is plant observation. So this is really important. I know Sam was hitting on this, looking at the plant, looking at the stem, looking at the leaves. If it's a flowering plant, checking that out, what's happening, checking to see if pollinators are actually visiting the garden. And I put here, and then on the next slide, some things that you all can look at for plant observations. And these are really just looking at the health of the plant, but you can also do measurements of the different, the leaves of the plant over time to kind of see what's happening. You can play music and see if that does anything to the plants. I mean, there are so many different things that you can do. You can look at the color. Is it light green? Is it darker green? Looks at chlorophyll and the plant being able to make the food. So very different things that you can do with that. Go to the next slide, Kenneth. So this is a corn leaf. And so usually more than likely, you probably won't see all of this just because the potting mix that they're giving you has the vermiculite and perlite, so it has the quote unquote food in there. And then you may want to fertilize, i.e. amend or add compost or add whatever it is that you think is appropriate for your family if you're consuming this. You may only see yellowing, and that could be mostly from overwatering. So just maybe read up on the plant that you are trying to grow to understand their watering, what their needs are, so that you don't overwater or underwater. But in the sense that maybe you have really good watering plan, you may see some other things happening like the purpling, the leaves turning purple. That may be a deficiency in phosphorus, and that can be easily amended by just adding some compost and other amendments to the soil, and that will take care of that. So just be mindful of that, because you can over fertilize, and that can also cause some damage. So just, like I said, it's a science, and it's also a art to it. So really being observant. And I think that's a really good thing that you can do with the learners in and outdoors. All right, I think I have one more. Well, two more. So this is just another look at some of the different deficiencies in plants that will show in their leaves, just like it shows in us if we have a deficiency in vitamin D, vitamin C, things of that nature. It's the same thing with the plants. They're just like us. They need things, they need nutrients, they need vitamins, they need all these things to grow in abundance. So just pay attention to those, and you can find this on the web at your leisure. It's there. They have several versions of this. And I put the reference at the bottom left if you want to check it out for yourself. All right, the last one is wind. So I talked a little bit about that because of where I live. That's why it came up for me, because it's so windy. It's almost a bit disturbing, because I knew Chicago was the windy city, but I never felt wind like this until I moved to this home. And so I've been thinking about how can I protect my plants. And one of the things that farmers would do out, in rural areas is to plant what they call windbreaks. And that's basically planting trees. And so the trees in specific formations to kind of break the wind, so it's not as harmful to the vegetation, because wind can cause all types of things. It can cause soil erosion. It can uproot plants if they're not, stable and secure into the soil. So you want to think about that. And so there's experiments you all can do with looking at wind speed and direction and how that's impacting the vegetation, and experimenting with the type of wind breaks that you would like to employ. So I've been thinking creatively, what can I do in my area? And so if you have ideas, I'll definitely take those to heart. And I will stop there, because the next thing is just a picture of an example of a windbreak on a rural area. You see those trees, and you may have ridden down the interstate and you've seen just random trees, and you're like, why are those random trees there? Because it's not a forest area. We live in a grassland area. So those are there for a specific reason, and they're there to break the wind. So I'll stop there, and I just want to thank you all for listening, and hope that we imparted some wisdom to you that is helpful and useful and impactful for the learners that you engage.
All right, just double checking. Can you all hear me? Yeah, can I
Yep.
get all right, cool, excellent. So thank you, Sam. Thank you, Dr. Martin. That was great information. We were able to share with you all what the Grow Kits actually look like and gave you some ideas on how you can use them. I wanted to highlight what I learned from another teacher. She was commenting, she was like nervous getting the Grow Kit at first because she felt like everything she's trying to grow, she kills, right? She said that. She's like, everything I grow, I kill. And she got this Grow Kit and she was really happy to see how easy it was, because everything she needed was right there in the kit, and she was able to grow some vegetables and share that experience with her students who are also growing things. So she came in feeling like she might be overwhelmed, and really was happy about how easy it was and how the process was. And even if you do have some of that discoloration, as Dr. Martin was talking about, um, every mistake is a learning opportunity, and this is what we're all trying to do together, right? So there's no bad outcome here. It's all opportunities to learn. So what we wanted to offer for teachers, you have the option of selecting a 5-gallon grow bag that you can have for your classroom. And then we can offer 1-gallon grow bag for each student in your class. That'll also come with the activity book and the packet of seeds that Sam outlined earlier. So we have a form that I'll be sending out to you after this that you can complete. Please let us know the name, your name, the school, how many kits you'll be able to use. And all this is subject to availability. We are casting a pretty wide net. We will be doing our best to keep up with demand. A lot of us are volunteering our time to fill these kits, and I am going to personally do my best, even if I have to be there on weekends filling up grow kits to supply your classrooms, and I will be doing that. Um, but it is subject to availability and our capacity. And pretty much what we will do, if we have a certain amount of grow kits, we will try to also touch as many schools as possible. So instead of giving 4 classrooms at one school, we will probably spread that out over 2 or 4 different schools. So just keep that in mind, but please go ahead and sign up and let us know what you're looking for. And please share with your colleagues, other members, other teachers in your school, and we can try to get out as many as possible. And with that, I would like to pause the recording now. Can you resume? Thank you. That was a great question and answer period. For those of you that may be watching the recording, please feel free to reach out directly to me with any of your questions, and we will be able to answer those for you as well. If you are interested in getting clock hours or your CPDU for this presentation, I will be emailing you a ISB evaluation. I'm just going to need you to fill that out and then send it back to me. If you can fill it out digitally, that's fine. I know that doesn't always work. So if you need to print it and either take a picture of it and scan it and send that back to me, that is perfectly acceptable. However you want to fill it out is fine with me. Email it back to me at kenneth@healthyschoolscampaign.org. If you have not already submitted your IEIN, your Illinois Educator Identification Number, please include that in your email when you send in the evaluation, and then I will then send you your certificate of completion for your 1 clock hour. I have some resources here. Again, I will be sending out a PDF, and you'll have all of these links that will be live for you. Healthy Schools Campaign developed an in-person learning resources for parents and caregivers. It's just something to guide us through the changes in COVID-19 protocols and questions they should be asking of the teachers in the schools, just to making sure that everyone is safe. So if you want to share that with parents or around your school, please do so. Pilot Light has some other ideas for educating in the classroom around nutrition education and at home. So I want to share that with you as well. And of course, Chicago Grows Food. I have a link to their website and it tells you a little bit more about the campaign and our history. We are new, we're growing, looking forward to you growing with us. Pun definitely intended. And then, and again, I have the sign up link for you to stay involved with us and get the kits for your classroom. Again, I am Kenneth. Reach out to me if you have any questions. If something comes up to you at any point, just feel free. Also, feel free to follow Chicago Grows Food on Instagram. Dr. Martin talked about how there are different things that she's already posted on there, some videos, so you can have like that practical knowledge. So when you're going through the process, you do not have to feel alone. We are here to support you through the process. Is there anything anybody wanted to add before we sign off? Just wanted to not. All right. Well, I'm going to say thank you very much to Aniensi, who's my colleague at Healthy Schools Campaign, who's been doing all the behind the scenes stuff and actually doing stuff right before I even asked for it. She's amazing. Danielle, thank you for your support throughout this and managing the chat and asking the questions. Sam, thank you very much for your expertise and everything that you had to offer. And Dr. Martin, big thank you to you for all of the things that you shared, which I'm going to have to go and do homework on, which I really appreciate. So unless there's anything that anyone else has to say, I want to thank you all very much for your time and for joining us, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you.